You don't actually like JB, do you? No. But I do like, actually, you know what? He's growing on me. He's growing on me. He's growing on me. He's growing on me. Certainly possible. Illinois governor says Biden could face primary challenge. JB Pritzker, who's fueled talk of his own White House ambitions, emphasized he isn't encouraging a challenge and is focused only on securing a second term as governor. Chat. Biden is unlikely to take bold steps to protect women's right to have an abortion that Democratic lawmakers have called for in recent days. White House aides say President Biden is irked by his party's persistent questions over his plans to seek re-election in 2024. AOC tweeting, thinking emoji. Oh, shit. Pritzker and AOC. Joey Jojo, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. To drop the bit for a minute, people like JB because he was a Democrat who ran on things that were very popular amongst Democrats, and then he did basically all of those things in office. Somehow, that is rare. He delivers through the base in a way we expect from a red state governors. Damn. Supreme Court to hear a case. Yeah, we talked about that, Ja Buddha. And let me just say this. That case is the end of American democracy. That's it. So, chat, this is absolutely batshit crazy. In an election case out of North Carolina, SCOTUS agrees to review the independent state legislature theory next term. Under the theory, state legislatures have broad power to set the rules for federal elections, even if state courts say those rules are unconstitutional. So, in other words, the independent state legislature theory means that governors and state Supreme Courts have no authority over state legislatures. It's unbelievably radical. And that's why. Why? Because state courts and governors, you can't gerrymander that. It's just, what's the state? But the state legislature, you could gerrymander to fucking hell. And even if you lose the vote, you can win the state legislature by packing and cracking your opposition through gerrymandering. This would literally mean that Republicans would be totally immune from elections. This is incredible. They could rig the elections completely, including federal elections. That's the important thing to understand. This is not about state elections. This would be the state legislature setting the rules for their federal elections, thereby rigging federal elections as well. That's the case that will end representative democracy in the United States. This person is correct. This case has the power to make the Voting Rights Act and redistricting non-reviewable by state courts. This is beyond a dangerous case. If the Democrats allow this to happen, I mean, this is, I don't know what to say, but it's over. You know, leftists, prominent leftists oftentimes leave the country of their birth for a period of time and provide critique and commentary from abroad. How would you feel about that? How would you feel about that? Lenin did it. Marx did it. Mike did it.
Mo, I need your advice.
Yeah?
See, I got this friend named Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo.
That's the worst name I ever heard.
Hey! Joey Jojo!
Damn, Joey Jojo, you need to not be so fragile.
Hey, on your way to work tomorrow, instead of sitting around with your finger up your ass, look around.
Wait! Dripped out trade unionists, they just pre-posted it! Alright. One of my favorite clips everywhere, any of all time, chat.
There's a union out there called AFSCME, and they're busting their balls for you doing a lot of shit work you take for granted. For example, we pick up your fucking garbage. We got broads out there who keep your kids from getting run over by some hard-on. We plug up the holes in the road so you don't fuck up your car. And we push around a lot of little old ladies from Florida. We're out there zapping rats and roaches and making sure your kids don't drink piss from no fucking water fountains. We're fucking AFSCME, Amalgamated Federalization. Hey, I don't know what the fuck it means. All I know is we're hard-working, tax-paying people like you, and we don't take shit from nobody. You got that, asshole? AFSCME, the fucking union that works for you.
I'm a janitor. I want to join this union now. Well, they typically represent people that are government employees. But hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, dude.
You know, I've just come back from Europe, and Europe is facing the inflation that we're facing. And what's so striking is that Europeans are not blaming their governments the way we blame our government for the inflation. There are a number of issues. I mean, the president, hasn't been perfect. The president promised a Build Back Better bill and clearly didn't have the votes, and I think hurt himself in the process.
Pensional raise, that's tier 2. Tier 1 for 2 months.
Perfect. But for him to be at 39%, he is in Watergate levels. I mean, he has fallen that far, and it doesn't make sense. There's no great scandal surrounding him. Yeah. We're helping an ally that's in a war. Usually Americans rally around the flag in such a circumstance. So the president, I think, is facing
Ukraine is an ally now? Since when? This guy, I mean, like, this is the I mean, it's just utter intellectual bankruptcy. Ukraine is one of the most corrupt. You know what Ukraine was known for, chat? Corruption and sexual trafficking of children. It's probably one of the worst countries in the fucking world prior to the invasion. What are you talking about, ally?
Wins that are unusual. I would say a lot of it has to do with the pandemic and the fact that we still haven't recovered from COVID, in the sense that as a nation we still have an economy that it reflects COVID, and some people are still getting sick. So I think there are a lot of reasons. I think
they're a U.S. ally now. They're a U.S. ally only in the sense that they're fighting a proxy war for us against Russia, which, I'll be honest with you, chat, I don't really even I guess it's generating revenue for the military-industrial complex. I mean, Russia has the government that we gave them. It's kind of like weird that we're even fighting them,
We've been really hard on this president, more than we have been on his modern predecessors, frankly.
The reason why Biden is unpopular is because I'll help you. I'll help explain it. You guys want to see why Biden is unpopular? Here, let me see if I can help you. Let me see if I can help you. What's more important to human flourishing, cheap TVs and shitty sweatshop clothes, or healthcare and education? Here I created a variant of a chart that's been popularized by AEI's Mark Perry, and as I used it by Jerry Peace, 18 charts that explain the American economy. As you can see, clothing and durables, that's cars, home appliances, and other long-lasting consumer goods, have been getting cheaper rapidly, while healthcare and education have tended to get more expensive over time. Food and rent are in the middle. Now, chat, I don't know if you noticed this, but what's really interesting, and this is what Tom SCOTUS says, the Twitter user says, durable goods and apparel are getting cheaper rapidly. 15% decline in 30 years. Tuition and childcare tending to get more expensive over time equals greater than 100% increase in the last 30 years. Now, all this the tick down you see for 2020 is like not relevant, but medical care's up massively, tuition's up, childcare's up massively, energy's up massively, rent's up massively. But hey guys, you could buy a $6 t-shirt from Target. Why are we so unpopular? You can't afford a home, you can't afford to get health care, you can't afford to get an education, you can't afford to put gas in your tank. But hey, why are we unpopular, man? I mean, that's the reality of what we're facing.
Nationwide, progressives have a rural problem. If you look at an old picture of nationwide, progressives have a rural problem. If you look at an old picture of me, you might not believe that I'd be interested in trying to solve this problem. Many in the mainstream Democratic Party believe that you have to look like a parody of a rural person, like you just shot a buck, to win as a Democrat in rural areas. Others believe that you have to compromise your values and look like you just shot a piece of climate legislation. They're both wrong. This is the story of how my campaign manager, Canyon Woodward, and I won 2 elections in rural districts in the most rural state in the country, Maine, one time beating a leading Republican incumbent.
Tonight, we highlight the state's youngest female legislator, 29-year-old Senator Chloe Maxman of Nobleboro.
While in office, I passed one of the first state-level Green New Deal bills in the country. We join a movement of young progressives in rural America fighting for change. If we want to win on climate and everything else that we care about, the Democratic Party needs to learn from our new rural roadmap.
Taking a look at election results over the past few decades, It shows us a flashing warning sign for Democrats as the nation's urban-rural divide has deepened.
The mainstream Democratic Party has all but abandoned rural places. Just over a decade ago, in about 2009, rural voters had no partisan lean, Republican or Democrat. But today, rural voters are going 16 points Republican. I think there's a theme, especially at the national level and within the National Democratic Party, that kind of looks down on rural Americans, and there's some really infamous examples.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Rural folks are seeing that and understanding that. You know, I have a voice memo from 2018 where I talk about how Democrat is a bad word in rural places. A lot of times it ends the conversation. It's a pattern that's been developing over decades and that we haven't really confronted at the grassroots level across the country. The biggest secret to our electoral and policy success: we actually talked to people and built relationships. Every single day of our first campaign, I drove down dirt roads, knocked on doors, and talked to people who had said they'd never been contacted by a Democrat before. These dirt roads were a huge abandoned space for a new politics to emerge. I think the biggest lesson that I learned is the act of listening. And it sounds so simple, and I think it's a skill that I have learned throughout the 20,000 doors that we've knocked in the past 2 cycles. I was canvassing in 2018. I drove down this one driveway, and I could see the owner and a bunch of his friends in the garage working on their snowmobiles. And he said, "I just have one question. Do you believe in Medicaid expansion?" And I said, "Yes." And he just kind of pointed away and said, "You can leave now." I literally said, "Hold on just a second. Can you just explain to me what you're thinking? I'd just love to hear your thoughts, even if you don't vote for me." And he, told me this amazing story that still gives me goosebumps to this day about how he grew up in the same house that he lived in without any electricity or running water, and he's built everything for himself. And part of that life for him means buying your own health care. While I don't agree with all of the narrative.
The irony of Biden being the anti-acceleration candidate in 2020 is not lost on me. No, he was the accelerationist candidate. He told you exactly what he was going to do. Nothing is going to fundamentally change. And the problem we have in our country is our primary system is stupid. There, I said it. The people that select our candidates are the psychotic freaks that are fans of a political party. Turnout is like microscopic. Primaries are fucking stupid. And so how do you get those psychotic fans of a political party to vote for your candidate? You tell them your candidate is the most likely to win. They don't believe in anything. They don't believe in policies. Bernie Sanders won the debate on all the policies. All right? Democrats agree with Bernie on all the policies, but they didn't vote for policies. They voted to win. And their TV man, all the people on the TV said that Biden was more electable. The elite media opinion makers told people, yeah, you may like Bernie. As much as they tried to shiv Bernie and attack him in every way, nothing stuck. But if you need to be mature, look at your husband. You settled for him. Now settle for a president. You didn't marry that guy that you really turned you on in your personal life. Well, don't vote for the guy that really turns you on politically. Vote for the settle. You don't want to die alone, do you? That was the fucking Democratic Party's message. Settle. And I want to tell you something. If you settle for somebody who doesn't make you happy, then you never will be. And that's what Joe Biden is. Court concedes DNC had the right to rig primaries against Sanders. In June 2016, a class action lawsuit was filed against the Democratic National Committee and former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz for violating the DNC charter by rigging the Democratic presidential primaries for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. Even former Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid admitted in July 2016, everybody knew that this was not a fair deal. He added that Debbie Wasserman Schultz should have resigned much sooner than she did. The lawsuit was filed to push the DNC to admit their wrongdoing and provide Bernie Sanders supporters who contributed him financially with millions of dollars in campaign contributions with restitution for being cheated. Federal Judge Williams Locke dismissed the lawsuit after several months of litigation, which DNC attorneys argued the DNC would be well within their rights to select their own candidate. In evaluating the plaintiff's claims at the stage, the court assumes the allegations are true, that the DNC and Wasserman Schultz held a palpable bias in favor of Clinton and sought to propel her ahead of her Democratic opponent. The order then explained why the lawsuit should be dismissed. The court must now decide whether plaintiffs have suffered a concrete injury particularized to them or one certainly impeding that is traceable to the DNC and its former chair's conduct. Federal courts are limited jurisdiction, possessing only the power authorized by the Constitution and statute. For their part, the DNC and Wasserman Schultz have characterized the DNC's charter's promise of impartiality and even-handedness as a mere political promise, political rhetoric that is not enforceable in federal courts. While it may be true in the abstract that the DNC has the right to have its delegates, quote, go into back rooms like they used to and smoke cigars to pick the candidate that way, the DNC, through its charter, has committed itself to a higher principle. So, like, that was the DNC's defense. We are allowed to rig it. We don't have to keep the promise of our charter. Does anyone discuss the ways Obama bankrupted the DNC? Yeah, I mean, he was a fucking loser in every way. The Democratic Party, if you didn't know this, chat, thank you for reminding me, Dragon Army, was bankrupt under Obama's presidency. That's right. The Democratic National Committee was bankrupted by Barack Obama.
You know, I have so much empathy and understanding. So we had that conversation together and he ended up voting for me. And it was just such an incredible example of how withholding judgment and kind of just disarming a conversation, taking away that pressure of asking for a vote, how that can open up all of this space for something real. In January 2020, I had already started to knock on doors, but a few months later, COVID hit, and we decided to pivot all of that infrastructure towards mutual aid. We provided rides. People still needed to get to the doctor and go to chemotherapy, but they didn't have any way to get there. We connected them with local food resources. We would facilitate prescription pickups. There was one woman who couldn't go to the library to read the news, and so one of our volunteers bought her a subscription to the New York Times. We called people of every single political persuasion, and that network still continues to this day. You know, it was a pretty interesting model for how campaigns can be really used to...
See, if the Democratic Party was actually democratic, we wouldn't be in this mess. Is literally the truth. West M. Caleb says... I mean, progressives should vote harder for candidates in primaries. Absolutely. Did you not? Are you brain fucking dead? I think you're brain dead. I think you're brain dead. I legitimately think, and you may think you're smart. I want you to know that I profoundly think you're stupid in like a kind of fundamental, unchangeable way. Like you got hit in the head with a sledgehammer. The neurons are just not capable of connecting anymore. Like you're that profoundly fucking dumb. Okay? I want you to understand that's what I think of your ability to cognate, okay? My God. Like, 3 head is how your head is shaped. Legitimately. This is West M. Caleb, chat. He's named after a meme that lasted like 5 minutes to show you how intelligent this person is. As I just explained, the people that vote in primaries are fans of political parties. They're extremely low turnout. They have no democratic legitimacy. And I just explained it all. Did you not hear? Are you fucking stupid? Do you have an actual point? Chat, Chaz Astronaut, thanks for the 100,000 bits. Excuse me. My God.
Benefit
the irony of how he treats his chatters versus the video we're watching. I treat my chatters with respect. I don't treat right-wing dipshits repeating the same talking points that have been debunked literally 2 minutes before he said them as a human being, because they're not. One thing you need to learn about war is your opponents, you have to mentally put them in a different category than human being. That's a skill you should start to cultivate in yourself. Red Collective, thanks for the tier 1. Would we be better off with a parliament or Of course. The point you are arguing is literally progressives should turn out for their candidates in primaries. Are you fucking brain dead?
28 months of slowly and
you can say what people ought to... Oh, this is what you've never heard. You've never heard this before because you're fucking liberal. I'll explain it to you. You could say what people ought to do all you want, but if they're not doing it, the system is broken. People ought not to be addicted to opioids. Congratulations, dipshit. That's not how you make public policy, dummy. People ought to do this. People ought to learn how to read. No shit. You know what we did? We made public schooling mandatory for all children. That's how we taught people to read. We didn't go, you ought to read. You ought to learn how to read. We said, what is the policy we need to have in order to get the good outcome? And then we did it. I know in your liberal brain where you think everybody is some sort of atomized, rational individual who's making decisions based out of the whole catalog of possible human actions. That's not how people work. You brain-dead liberal freak. And Bernie Sanders, people did turn out, which is why he won in Iowa. Oh, wait, they created a rigged electoral college-esque system, which gave more state delegate equivalents to rural voters over urban voters and voters from colleges. Weird that the Iowa Democratic Party created a mini electoral college within their state in order to give more delegates to someone who didn't win the state. Isn't that fucking weird? And then Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire, and then Bernie Sanders won Nevada by a land fucking slide. And what happened? The Democratic Party Bernie Sanders is obviously the plurality candidate of the party. We should unite behind him. You know what they said? They said, we're willing to risk party damage. I mean, maybe you're so dumb you've never heard this shit. Legitimately fucking stupid liberal. Why do progressives hate the Democratic Party? Oh, wait. Democratic leaders willing to risk party damage to stop Bernie Sanders. Congratulations. You did it. Congratulations. You did it. We hate you. Congratulations. Any advice for a scientist from a super elitist Ivy League institution to help the youth in New Jersey? I mean, individual action is kind of what I'm arguing against at this very moment. The entire Democratic Party just united around defeating a young progressive woman for a pro-NRA, pro-life, right-wing corporate Democrat in Texas. They just did it. You should have just turned out higher. Well, see, they're spreading so much misinformation and they're using every bit of elite power they can to elect conservatives and corporate whores. Maybe people don't have a completely clear picture of who believes in what. Fucking worthless idiots.
Community. When I first got elected in 2018, I really wanted all of my legislation to come straight from my community. I rarely heard people talk about climate change in my community. I didn't hear them say those words exactly. But what I did hear was so many of our farmers say, it's so tough to farm now because I can't depend on the rain. And the people who grow up in Maine, we can't ice fish every winter because the ice just isn't what it used to be. And we're really worried about having good jobs and sustainable industries in rural places. And so to me, it was really just about translating progressive work into this rural context because we're not that far apart. We just talk about it in really different ways. Our Green New Deal for Maine did two simple but important things. It created quotas for apprentices on large-scale renewable energy projects. So renewable energy development in Maine trains a skilled workforce and makes good-paying green jobs available long-term. It also provided resources for schools that are looking to transition to solar energy. The part about apprentices in the Maine Green New Deal really came from the incredible work of the unions, and they deserve all of the credit for it. I was merely a conduit. I heard so much from people who, you know, they want to come to Maine, but they don't know if they're going to have the workforce in the state. And I also heard from so many young folks who want to be able to stay and work in Maine, but don't know if they're going to be able to make a living. And so we were trying to solve that problem a little bit. I think it was the second conversation that we had about the bill. You know, the unions were there at the table, and that's the sort of labor climate movement solidarity that we need in order to achieve the vision of a Green New Deal across the country. As with most things in politics, our original bill got watered down. We lost 3 other parts of the bill, but I'm only one elected official. Our success can offer a roadmap, but we do need to go down the dirt roads and talk to rural America, electing dozens of candidates and passing dozens of bills. What if we saw every campaign as an opportunity to rebuild and transform both our policies and our communities?
Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.